We're going to talk about the journey from BI to AI that our partners in crime, Invista, have gone through, and it's a great learning session for you guys. I'm Douglas Bellin. I look after our industry solutions within the manufacturing and supply chain market on AWS. And that means working a lot with customers like yourself, hopefully out here, on what we've been able to do, how we tie together services, and make it easier for you to do that a second, a third, a fourth time as we go forward. With me today, I have Elizabeth and I have Caleb to be able to present with us. And I'd like to introduce them and have them say a little bit about themselves as well.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gonzalez. I've been with Invista for 9 years now, and I'm responsible for the advanced analytics and the business intelligence group there.
And I'm Caleb Wilkinson. I've been with Invista for about 3 years. I'm the lead data scientist and have jurisdiction over manufacturing and supply chain space.
So let's look at what we're going to go through in the next hour or so. Real quick, who is Invista? We'll talk about what they do, and how that's relative to your lives as we go forward. A little bit about the challenges that they've gone through, the vision and how they built to that vision, the concepts that they've gone through to be able to drive to make that vision real. Going into the partnership capabilities, how they built, what they recognize as partners, and being able to say, this is a good partner, this is why we want to partner with them. Looking at analytics overall, looking at automation and abstraction of that data and of that intelligence as they go forward, and then wrap it up from that standpoint. So let's look at who Invista is. So Invista is part of the Coke Industries, and it's a company that you probably use every day, unbeknownst to you. And the reason we can say that is the type of products that Invista makes. You probably walk on their products in the morning, in your bathroom, using a bath mat or other products from there. Hopefully, there's some of their products you haven't used. If you've been in a car accident and you had the airbag go off, that's made from a product called Nylon 6,6. And it goes through an incredibly stringent capability to make that type of product for there. So hopefully you haven't used those products. But if you have, Invista's the partner that made that for you guys to have those products as you go forward. Different polymers and different capabilities that start to get into your day in and day out life is really what Invista's been able to go from a business standpoint. But let's look at really who Invista is.
Thanks, Doug. All right, so when you look at these numbers, 5,000 employees or so, is that a big company to you or a small company? Well, a little bit of both. So for us, regardless of whether you think it's big or small, the global nature of this company and the fact that we produce so many different products and the volume of those products that we produce, the important thing to think about is that we're actually a very lean company. And being a lean company, whether you're a large organization or a small organization, affects the values and what you prioritize. And for us, as a chemical company, obviously the stewardship and compliance is very high for us, but efficiency is very key as well. And so you'll see that kind of undertone throughout the presentation today. So we'll kick off a little bit with you guys talking about what our business challenge was a few years ago. This is close to my heart because I've lived all of this and was a part of it all, and I was there through the pain, and I'm excited to be here through where we're at today and where we'll go in the future. But I'll describe a little bit of where we were and how we had some pain and the vision that we created from that pain. So I will ask you to step into a visualization with me. So go ahead and, to get that sense of discomfort, go ahead and close your eyes and let's visualize together. I see a couple of you guys like, no, I'm not closing my eyes. There's robots and Iron Man in this conference. I'm not going to close my eyes. No, so go ahead. Okay, close your eyes and think of yourself as a business leader a couple years back. So you're going into the office and you got like Lady Gaga playing on the radio, and you're walking in, and you go and you sit down, you log into your computer. And so you put in your password and you check your email, and then you see you've got a voicemail. So you go and you listen to your voicemail. And the first one is from a salesperson, and they're telling you that they've got this great software and it's got artificial intelligence included, and you think to yourself, I don't know what this sci-fi stuff has anything to do with my business. I'm deleting, going on. And then the next one is a customer. That customer is furious. Their order is late, and it's affecting their ability to produce their product. Your product is a raw material into theirs, and so they're very upset with you. So you jump up, you run out, and you go talk to your analyst, and you tell them, hey, where's this order? Why is it late? When's it gonna get there? And the analyst comes up and says, I'm working on it. Don't worry, I'm working on it. But you know, it's gonna take me half a day, maybe a day to get you those answers. So you can open up your eyes. So did you feel a little anxiety kind of rushing in when you had those feelings? Or maybe that's where you're at today. But this is where we were a couple years ago. So data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence was not commonly discussed. We had an environment where it took days, it took weeks to get data into insights for some leaders to make decisions. We had an environment where we had people taking the data out of our analytics tools, putting them back into Excel spreadsheets, manipulating the data again, then putting them back into something that a leader could make decisions on. The first time we tried to do data science, it took us 2 months to get the data from the plant site into a data scientist's hands. And then only one engineer at that plant site knew the data and the process well enough that they could help us build a model on that. It was a very painful environment. We were a somewhat large organization that had had success in the past through large capital projects, so building plant sites or new assets. And what we found was that we were successful at transforming in those type of projects, but we didn't really know how to transform in monetizing our data assets. So we needed to make a change. And so we had a vision for a better state. We were lucky to be in an organization where transformation and change was valued pretty highly. And so we decided that we needed to kind of wrap that in our analytics vision. And so we were focused on intelligently creating a workforce, entire workforce that could use advanced analytics. We wanted to get the right data in the right hands at the right time for people to take action, or machines to take action. And we wanted a technology stack that enabled innovation and wasn't a barrier for that experimentation. So notice I didn't say that we wanted to hire an army of data scientists, although I love working with data scientists. We didn't say we just wanted to get the right data in the right hands, and we didn't say that we wanted to deploy this massive analytics platform, or platform indeed. What we really wanted to do was we wanted to get people with building that habit of using technology and data for decision making and taking action. And many of us do that today. So, or actually even did that a couple years ago. So before I leave my home, I ask Alexa, what's the weather gonna be like today? If she tells me it's gonna rain, I grab an umbrella. If she tells me that it's gonna be sunny, I grab sunscreen. We wanted to take that natural reaction of asking for insight, getting that quickly, and then driving that action easily in the individual from our personal lives into our work lives as well. And so we've focused a lot on that and wanted to connect you to what that process was for us. Now, I won't say that we have fully succeeded at this vision. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be an honest girl in Vegas, which I know is probably not very often. But we are not totally there. But we're getting there. And we've come a long, long way in the last few years. And I really hope to describe to you why we've come a long way, what we think has been the biggest accelerants for us, that we can, either you can maybe find that relatable or hopefully educational for your process as well.
And I don't think this is going to be a journey that will ever finish, right? There's a constantly new hypothesis we're testing, trying to figure out the next thing. So this is a in-the-moment snapshot of where we're at. Tomorrow it's probably going to change.
That's right. Absolutely. So I would say some early indicators that we're on the right path is that we have data science now called out in the 2019 initiatives of all of our main departments of our organization. So a couple of years ago, not hardly even talked about or understood. Now it's part of the main initiatives in both operations, supply chain, digital marketing, all of those. It can take us now hours, even seconds at times, to get our data scientists the data from the plant sites, or even to a new Alexa skill. We have visualization tools that allow our business leaders to go in and analyze where an order is at so they can talk to a customer very quickly. And we do even have a technology stack that we can plug and play new technology as differentiators come out in the market without these huge multi-year implementation strategies. So let's dig in a little bit to what that road was to get there. So why did we have a sense of discomfort a couple years ago? In addition to that anxiety-driven visualization, we realized when we benchmarked ourselves that we weren't very far along against the analytics community, and and benchmarking yourself is a very helpful way to articulate where you're at as an organization. And so we wanted to do that, but not just in our own industry, in chemical and fiber manufacturing. We wanted to do this in the analytics industry as well. And so I've heard many of you, or in my various conversations with some of you, that getting the right people to connect to the value of really investing in artificial intelligence or machine learning is sometimes a really tricky thing. And a lot of that is trying to get the right people uncomfortable today with what's happening. And so visualizing that and that change management was something that was really powerful for us. And it was doing something like this. So taking a diagram that is common in the industry. So for a refresher, this is the Gartner Hype Cycle. This is the Invista version of the Gartner Hype Cycle. So this is where we were in 2017. And if you knew where the industries were in 2017, we were pretty far back. We were behind the analytics maturity, but we were actually in line with chemical and fiber manufacturing, which surprised me. I didn't think we would be. We had a business intelligence suite that was doing pretty good, especially in domain, like very siloed specific BI. And when I say BI, that means something different to different people, but I like to think of BI like the grocery store of data. You know, at the grocery store, you go grab your eggs and your milk and your veggies, and you go home. You chop that up and you bake it, and it comes out a value-added product. Same thing for your data and your business. You go and you grab customer data, and you grab sales data, and you grab forecast data, and you mix that with product data, and it ends up being a value-added product, your customer and sales profitability. And we were coming off of a large ERP implementation at this time, and so from that ERP implementation, we now had a system that had all of our data from our ERP, our supply chain, coming together, which was great, but there were inflated expectations at that point that business intelligence and enterprise BI environment was going to give us all these answers, that it was going to tell us what was going to happen, and it was going to tell us the right trade-off decisions that were coming as well. And so a quick refresher on the Gartner Hype Cycle is you start out in innovation. As technologies come through here, it goes into this inflated expectations. And then, and those inflated expectations are usually people just trying to experiment with technology or tools and figuring out what it's good for. Then when those expectations aren't really met, you dip deep into this trough of disillusionment. You go, that's all hype, that tool's not good. And then you finally found the sweet spot of these technologies, and you go into enlightenment and then profitable productivity. And so we were in the trough of disillusionment with enterprise BI, and we had a whole bunch of stuff coming up and queuing up in innovation. And so we knew we needed to move fast. So once we made it our mission to move fast, we did. And we moved a lot of these concepts of artificial intelligence and predictive analytics and deep learning through that hype cycle fairly quickly. But what we found was that old saying is true, is time really is that most valuable non-renewable asset. And so we realized something was still uncomfortable to us. We had moved pretty faster, we were moving fast in this, but we realized that new concepts and technology are coming faster at us as well. So moving once isn't good enough. It was continuously moving through this. And so we embedded that as part of our vision as well, is how do we really reduce that inflated expectations, bring up that disillusionment so that we get to that profitable productivity much faster. And we've seen that some of the concepts and the mental models that we'll describe to you today is really what's helped us get there, and we think is going to help us then continue to evolve as an organization in the future. And one great example of this is natural language processing. I mean, we did that, a couple months ago was our first experiment with it. And now we've got business leaders throughout our organization that understand what NLP is, and when I say NLP, they know what that means. And they know how to profitably deploy that in their business.
And that's super exciting, because literally a month ago, they had no idea that NLP existed, right? Now we've got 3 or 4 projects queuing up around NLP, right? This is miles ahead of where we were in 2017. Yeah. So artificial intelligence is one of those buzzwords that's really hard to define. because everyone has different definitions of what it truly means. So I'll tell you a story. A few weeks ago at a church event, a young man came up to me and he said, "Caleb, what do you actually do as a data scientist?" Now, this is a fun question, and I found that if you say, I take the complex functions of nature and we convert them into mathematical formulas, and then we use those formulas to reduce uncertainty around certain things, that no one actually likes that definition, and they don't actually know what I do, and so it doesn't really matter, so it's useless, right? So what I did with this young gentleman and this question was I sort of explained the projects we work on, and I used that as the definition of what we think artificial intelligence is. So at Invista, we have 3 really strategic areas that we do a lot of data science and artificial intelligence work. You've got strategic planning, supply chain, and then the manufacturing space. So what is a question like in the manufacturing space? Well, we've got process forecasting, where the hypothesis is, if I knew how much product I was going to make in 30 days, then I could optimize my inventory, resulting in less working capital. Why is that important? Well, at Invista, 1 day's working capital is about $1 million. So if we can reduce that, we get a lot of savings. In the supply chain space, you have route optimization, where the question is, if I knew what transit time to put between 2 locations, then I could choose that transit time, resulting in more on-time deliveries. Or, neither late nor early is good in this case, because it means you have to carry more inventory. Again, it's a working capital play. It's also a customer service play because they're angry when the thing doesn't get there on time or when it gets there too early. Another one in the supply chain space is customer segmentation, where the hypothesis or the question is, if I knew who my best customer was, then I could build preferred partnerships, resulting in higher customer satisfaction and, in the end, higher revenue. In the strategic planning space, we've got things like process simulation, where the question is, if I knew how much raw material I was going to use in the future, then I could acquire the proper amount of storage tanks at our plant facilities, resulting in optimized plant footprints. So I explained this to the young gentleman at this church event, and I could see the disappointment and disillusionment in his eyes. I imagine what he was thinking was, white lab coat and taking 2 test tubes of data and slowly pouring one into the other, right? Even though I don't have the chemical pouring of test tubes into one or another and mixing them up, right? Data science shares a lot with all the other sciences, right? We rely highly on the scientific method. And this is one thing that has been our guiding concept as we've done this iteration on our journey from business intelligence to artificial intelligence. And it's been really quite interesting because what we found, and we focused in on 3 areas, people, process, and technology. What we did is we just used what's been around for years and centuries, right? We observed something that was wrong. We had a hypothesis. We tested collected data. We analyzed, and we got results. And then we did it again. Some of the areas that we did this in, for example, we observed that we had bad partnerships in the form of vendor lock-in and low flexibility. We hypothesized that if we could get good partners, we could speed up transformation and experimentation and get to value much quicker. We observed that our organization was behind the times as far as it goes with analytic self-actualization. We hypothesized that if we set up distinct learning pathways, that our organization would self-actualize by themselves without much prodding from us. We observed that our old architecture was really inflexible, and it took a long time to get data through it. So we hypothesized if we decoupled each piece of our architecture, we could put in optimal vendors at any point and pull out vendors that were suboptimal. And that way we could quickly iterate through new technology. We weren't locked in to this vendor paradigm. Now that we have all of this set up, these are our hypotheses that we're going to show you today and test out. But we've added some cues for you to help out. So this people, process, and technology, it will move up and to the right on the rest of the slides. And then the areas that we're talking about will be highlighted, just to give you that visual cue of what portion of this we're talking about. Now, oftentimes when you start a journey, everyone asks, where did you take your first step? what was the first thing you did? And the first thing we did was hide the scientific method. Because apparently people didn't like the 5th grade science class where they learned it. So we disguised it using concepts from Agile and these XYZ value statements. So as it reads, it says, as a blank, if I knew X, then I would Y, resulting in Z, right? So let's make an example of this. So let's say I'm a process engineer. So as a process engineer, if I knew when my machine was going to fail, then I could bring the machine down just in time before it fails, resulting in higher uptime, less damaged equipment, and higher revenue. And so this is how we set up the scientific method in our organization to sort of get people, thinking that they were doing one thing and getting the result that we truly wanted of. We need some hypotheses, people. So now with all of this set up, we can take you on the journey that we started taking and are still taking at Invista from BI to AI.
Thanks, Caleb. So we're going to talk about preferred partners. So that may mean different things to you guys, but for us it means virtuous cycles of mutual benefit. So it's really that iteration of win-win environment. And we'll talk about this in the relation of a team itself. We'll talk about that in relation to suppliers. We'll talk about that in relation to our own internal organization as well. And so this was really a paradigm shift for us. We were in an environment that we had business intelligence, again, going well, but we were wanting to get to a place where we had a technology stack that enabled this artificial intelligence environment, but also had employees that knew how to use that environment as well. And so we already had a BI team that knew our data, knew our processes, and knew a lot of our business logic, but they didn't know data science, so we went and hired a couple. And the data scientists didn't know the business itself. And so each group needed to understand each other. Now, different companies do this differently. Some have a data science group that sits within the business. Some have both data science and BI sit together within IT. Some don't centralize at all, but for us, we felt like in order to move this massive initiative in this big company to scale this, we needed a group of individuals that was their mission, that they were focused on being these thought leaders that were pushing our organization into the future for this space. And so we started doing that. And I'll say 3 key things I think were the big proponents for helping us build this virtuous cycle of mutual benefit between these different kind of thought groups that we had. So agile process. Many of you are probably familiar with that. We were doing that. We had been doing that for years in our BI team. And it was going well until the data scientists entered. Sorry, Caleb.
Sorry about that. Screw stuff up all over the place.
Yeah, we had to accept late user stories, and our story point estimation got off all the time. And we realized this R&D nature of data science combined with Agile was just not quite working. However, the Agile nature and having these groups together and really having a priority that was very connected between 2 groups was very valuable. And what ended up happening was data scientists got their data faster, and the architects and the developers in BI understood how to automate Caleb's work better. And so this all really started working together, and it led us to start looking at the data ops methodology. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's kind of, I would say, the convergence of Agile, DevOps, and data science kind of coming all together. I like to think of it as Stephen Covey's second quadrant applied to analytics. You're iteratively making improvements today to exponentially improve your future. And so the thing that really resonated with me around data ops is the idea of reusability. So you hear containerizing things a lot today, that abstraction of your environment. And so we kind of went up and started containerizing. We started containerizing our architecture. We started containerizing our data science models for reusability so that the next time another plant had data that needed to flow through it, we could reuse what we had before. We even started containerizing our user stories in our Agile process. So we were very focused on all of those things. But then there was one last thing that I think was very important as well, is the goal-setting methodology of OKRs. So we had experimented with the SMART goals methodology, and we found that to be quite successful, but it didn't have that interconnection with the vision. So we had that vision before of really getting this broad organization connected and intelligently using advanced analytics, and we needed to make that happen along with our technology. And so each of us on the team created these objectives, these high-level objectives that in 3 months, those objectives, if they were successful, meant that we had succeeded within our vision for that 3 months. And then within each of those objectives, there was a key result, there was a quantifiable key result, and then that rolled up to the objectives, and then we built habits in addition to that increased the probability of success for those key results and thereby those objectives. So the important thing is there, and that's a very commonly known goal setting measure, but the important thing there was that we shared that. Our BI team shared that with our data scientists and vice versa, and we made it our mission to help each other succeed, which again led to that virtuous cycle of mutual benefit through the organization. And what ended up happening was those same individuals we had became a whole new team. They became this analytics group that had project managers that understood data science and knew how to run a data science project, but also embed the whole data pipeline to that data science project as well to speed up that method from going to experimentation to implementation. We had data scientists that understood how to quickly get at all of the data in our business, which is quite a lot of data. And then we had analysts and architects and engineers that now were thinking AI first and embedding that into our BI environment. So this was all really important. We also had a support analyst group. So they were starting to focus on model maintenance, which the minute a model goes into production, it starts to degrade. So I believe that for AI to thrive, you not only need a good model, but you need a group of people that understand what's changing in your process and in your data in order to keep that model alive, prevent it from drifting, and then troubleshoot it when you need to.
And in analytics teams, oftentimes they call data scientists the unicorn because they have math and all these other skills. But really, the true unicorn is someone who can do all of these roles. And it's impossible. And as a data scientist, I love analytics project managers. I'm horrible at managing projects. And they're like a shield to me, which is great. So they tell me what I need to work on, I work on it, I get it done, and I can convey that to the other people on the team. So teamwork is really how data scientists are successful at Invista. I don't know how you could do it otherwise. There must be true unicorns out there.
So while we were creating this virtuous cycle of mutual benefit within our own team, we were also creating it with our business partners. And business partners, I mean both internal and external networks. And so one of the things that kind of shock me with data science is that there's the statistic that 60% of models never make it to production. And that's a scary stat. And a lot of people say that that's because of bad data. Some people say it's because of bad technology, and probably at times it is some of those. But to me, I really feel like it's trust. Trust in the models, trust in the people creating the models, and then sometimes even trust in your organization of how they're going to handle when your role gets slightly automated. And so we started focusing on how do we build that trust with our business partners. So an example of this is we had a project, and it was an optimization project for inventory, so a working capital project around our spare parts. And we started with this individual that we had done a lot of BI projects with in the past, and we started doing a data science project with them. And when we had our first stakeholder update meeting, we were going through and saying, hey, we've already gathered the data, we explored that data, and now we've started building a model. So they were ecstatic, and they were thinking to themselves, oh, this is great, we've got value right around the corner, this is awesome, we're almost there. And so then we went away and we looked at the model, and the model wasn't getting the lift that we wanted, and so we were going to go test some more hypotheses, and so we were starting to grab more data, and we came back to our stakeholder and we said, yeah, we're gathering more data, we're building more hypotheses and everything. And he's like, what do you mean? We were over here. Why are you all the way back at the start? And we're like, oh no, okay. So we have to educate and start getting people connected and setting those expectations early, building that trust in us around what this data science process looks like, the R&D nature of that, so that they could come along that journey with us, so they could iterate to the answer with us versus thinking that it was this waterfall approach. And it has since become a very successful project, and it taught us a lot. But the other thing that it taught us too was to start a lot of our projects with a very interpretable model. And sometimes that means it's not the most fun, exciting model to create, but it's one that business user that was getting used to data science, getting them connected and to what was under the hood of that model and understanding a little bit more about the interpretability.
That was one of my favorite parts that I didn't realize I would enjoy is I spent a lot of time in key stakeholders' offices explaining, like a 5-year-old, how a neural network worked or how this model was going to work it out. And and they understood. And so when we put the model into production, they were the ones who were explaining it to everybody else. And I was just sitting back like, this is great. And so if you have this relationship early on, you have just champions for your own data science work, and you don't even have to advertise.
And so we started building that trust in a variety of ways. And really, honestly, we started keeping it simple. We kept it easy. We kept it profitable. And a lot of times we started with cost-cutting measures to begin with. Our project managers really started wrapping these projects around with, and they essentially became those analytics translators that we're starting to hear in the market are really important. And they started wrapping these projects around with a framework. They were benchmarking very early in the project to understand if our models were improving or maybe something we needed to throw out for the time being. And then they also started making sure that our models were fully embedded into the business process. Because the worst thing is you create an awesome model, but you have to go run it over here, and then you have to get that person the information, and they have to go use that information. Instead, let's automate it as much as possible and improve that adoption. And so we focused on all of these things. But I'll say the thing that surprised me the most so far for the success that we've had is we had a lot of success. I would say different projects, a lot of pains, but a lot of successes. But not many people knew about it, or when they tried to describe it to others, they struggled. Because a lot of these projects are complex processes or they're complex solutions. And how do you make those relatable to the broader organization was a difficult thing. And so we realized we needed to help people do that. We needed to help them educate others in the organization in a very easily comprehensible way of something that we are doing. And so we started building out promotion material for the projects that we did. So when I entered into this group, I never would have thought I needed to create promotion material, but this was extremely important. Now we crowdsource some of this, so leveraging the people that are better at this, but this has been one of the strongest things I think have helped us scale AI at our organization. And so we'll give you some insights into one of those videos that we created on one of our projects.
Optimizing inventory levels is an ongoing strategy at Invista. Data science is helping us do this for stores inventory. The value story for this project was, if I knew what spare parts I was going to use and when, I would stock just the right amount, resulting in optimized inventory levels. For this solution, common algorithms from the medical field were applied to predict when and how much of inventory should be reordered. In order to build the algorithm, we needed to understand the aspects that inform us to hold excess inventory. 1. Lead times, or the time it takes to get a part in. 2. Issue number, or how much of an item is given each time someone asks for it. 3. Issue rate, which is how often someone comes and asks for a specific item. Let's look at wrenches for an example. We start by calculating how often someone will ask for a wrench during our lead time. People ask for 3 wrenches at a time. It takes 15 days to get a shipment of wrenches, and people ask for wrenches every 5 days. Dividing the delivery time by the time it takes to request a wrench gives us 3. Representing the number of times someone will ask for a wrench before a delivery of more wrenches arrives. Multiply this frequency of wrench requests by how many wrenches are normally requested. Finally, 9 wrenches are needed to last until the next shipment. What about stocking out? Good question. Yes, there is a risk of stocking out, but there is also a cost to holding more inventory than we need. In this solution, there are 2 thresholds used to allow reorder decisions based on risk profile. As we run this algorithm over time, we would expect the output to look something like this. Never reaching a perfect inventory level, but getting very close. This algorithm also calculates where we have deficit inventory. This can be a problem, especially if the deficit inventory contains critical spare parts. If we approach the algorithm now as a whole, the end state looks something like this. During the first month this algorithm was used, we were able to save $400,000, with an upside of over $2 million over the next couple of years. We believe that opportunities to save like this exist throughout Invista. We invite you to share your ideas on our Yammer page, Invista Advanced Analytics. Let's continue transforming Invista together.
So So I'm not sure who asked for 3 wrenches at a time, but people got it anyways. So this video really represented our ability to help people relate to what we were doing. And really the big thing there was helping them understand that there are proven models out in the industries that, in this case, the medical field, that could be applied new to our industry and bring a lot of value. And then we also gave them a feedback mechanism so that they could come and talk with us and chat with us about different projects that they would want, and kind of do that brainstorming. And so that was really powerful, actually, to get us scaling in analytics. And now we have more requests coming our way, and it's switched from a push to now a pull in our company. So in addition to those virtuous cycles of mutual benefit with our own team, with our internal business partners, we were also doing the same thing with suppliers. So we had this idea of what a preferred supplier looked like, and we were wanting to be one ourselves as an organization, but we had a hypothesis that we could use the suppliers we already had a couple years ago, and we realized in some very, very painful ways that was not the case. As advanced analytics starting to come in, there are new suppliers coming into the market that are differentiating, and the suppliers that we had at the time really weren't becoming that preferred supplier in advanced analytics. And so we found ourselves trying to figure out what a preferred supplier looked like. And some of the ways that we found very painful, we had a large ERP implementation, and after that we were thinking, okay, well, they're starting to dabble in advanced analytics, maybe we should use them to help us with this. Well, I'll tell you, that was a huge hit to our data science image, really. It was not a technology that was there yet, and so when some leaders in our organization tried to experiment with that, we got sent really pretty deep in that trough of disillusionment. Now, that was a few years ago. They've come a long way, but at that point in time, we realized we needed to look for someone that was differentiating in the market. We had another one where a company, we had a lot of our data sitting in their environment, and they kind of had this proprietary software, and they wouldn't let us get that data out without using their visualization tools. Well, that was a huge issue to us because that was our strategic asset. Like, how come we can't use our own strategic asset? Like, that's scary. And then we had another supplier who we spent millions with, and we sat with them and we told them we have this predictive maintenance problem, and we really want your help on this. And we were describing the problem and what we were looking for and the vision for it, and they came back and they said, okay, why don't you use this tool of ours? And so we started looking at that tool, and it really wasn't for what we were trying to do. And then they said, okay, well, it's a 5-year contract, so go ahead and just get in the 5-year contract with us and let's get going. And we're like, 5-year contract? That doesn't seem, I don't know. And so we started having this discussion, and all along, while we were having these discussions, they were creating the actual product we wanted, but trying to sell us another one, which was a huge concern for us. We were realizing they were after the win and not focused on that win-win situation throughout the future. And this is one thing that became a very big point of ours, to understand who are those suppliers in the market that are in for that win-win situation, that virtuous cycle of mutual benefit through. And so we started finding companies that are like that. And AWS was one of those. They sat with us a few years ago. They brought some specialists in. They brought some architects in. And we sat down and we told them our problems. We told them what we were trying to do. And they kind of looked at us and they're like, all right, well, we've got these services that we think are going to help you. We have these services that are coming, but they're not quite ready for what you're trying to do, but they're going to be here in about this amount of time. And then this is where we're not really differentiating for what you guys are trying to do, but here are some other preferred suppliers that we would encourage you to work with. So they weren't trying to put us into one thing and just that what they were wanting us to do. They were giving us that win-win situation. And we've since iterated with them over time in order to build out a technology stack, but not just the technology stack, even mental models and other things as well. So we found them to be a preferred supplier, and they actually help us benchmark other suppliers quite often. A couple other suppliers that we have found to be very successful in this way are companies like Seek or OSI Pi or Alteryx. Those have been very powerful as well. But one other thing that we started seeing in our business came to us and said, oh my gosh, every software that comes my way has AI in it. Like, really? It has machine learning embedded. And so we started thinking, man, that's a lot of software. Now really, what are the differentiators there? And so when I hired a data scientist, I never would have thought part of their role would be helping us understand what is under the hood of these different vendor softwares. But it has been one of the big value grabs that we've gotten as well. So Caleb and team have put together some really great criteria that they look at, and they look at these technologies and help our organization understand through these kind of matrices what a preferred supplier looks like and what to look for when they're talking with these suppliers. So for one, usage-based for our pricing models. That's huge for us. Customer feedback loop is enormous. Some companies are still coming out and they don't have APIs, which is kind of leads us running at these times. And some of these things, but also what Caleb and team have done is they've been able to get under the hood, understand exactly what models are being used in these different softwares. I mean, it's not even analytics tools. Sometimes it's just CRM systems or predictive maintenance systems that have AI or ML included in them. And what they can do is they can help the organization understand what assumptions they're making by using that software, which is not an easy thing to do at times. And so that's been very powerful in helping us bring down that inflated expectations so our business leaders understand what they're paying for. And it's allowed us to save a lot of money. It's allowed us to understand when to buy, when to build, and maybe even when to beta test something that's coming up. And one thing I would say, if you take anything away from this presentation, is please understand what a preferred supplier looks like for you in this day and age where everything is kind of decoupling and becoming an abstracted technologies, and there's differentiators in the market. Make sure you understand who's connecting and taking your data, your strategic asset, because that is extremely important as we move forward in order to get those exponential gains.
Yeah, this is one area, this is your data science image, right? A lot of people say, I don't want to deal with the supplier vendors, but if a vendor throws your organization into the trough of disillusionment, that's now your problem. And so we found this to be very helpful in keeping expectations right in line.
Absolutely. All right, so analytics self-actualization. So what is that? So it could be thought of as training program for an organization, but we don't really like to think of it as training programs. Training programs tend to be thought of more as how do you learn a technology? And that's not what we were trying to do. We were trying to get people unlocking curiosity in order to get the most of our data assets. And we felt like the best way to do that is understand where we were against this analytics maturity model, and then create intentional, repeatable learning pathways for them so that anywhere you're at in this maturity model, you have a very clear understanding of what's next for you to unlock that curiosity, to be able to leverage the tools, technology, to be able to leverage mental models to actually bring value to your organization, not just use the next technology, which is really important. And so we were all curious once. How do we know that? Well, we were all 5 or 6 once, right? We were asking those crazy questions. Why is the sky blue? When are we going to get there? The parent all-time favorite, where do babies come from? My son just asked me the other day, what's it feel like to grow old? And then he asked me, what does it feel like to be British? I'm neither of those, so I don't know how to answer him. But, you know, those silly questions kind of came when we were younger, but over time, a lot of us have lost that curiosity. And many hypothesize it's because we were told to be seen and not heard, or we were requested to not ask stupid questions, or we're maybe overscheduled so that we don't have time to think about the how or the why. And regardless of what reason it was, we found that it wasn't that we needed to teach people how to use analytics. We needed to teach people how to be curious, how to go after that next innovation, how to take their data and make more with it. And so that's really what we focused on in applying this to the analytics pathways.
And there's a famous poem that I personally think is really overutilized, but I'm going to use it here. And it says something along the lines of, I took the road less traveled by and it made all the difference, right? Our analytics pathways aren't going to be like that. We want well-worn trails that people know where they're at and where they're going, and we think this will make all the difference. And so this is our attempt at our learning pathways as it stands right now. Again, we change these often. But where we start is down here on this bottom left with visualization training. This gets people up and out of Excel. What a breath of fresh air. And allows people to see their data. If you do this visualization training correctly, your organization will say, why does my data look like that? Which is the perfect question. Again, curiosity. Why does it look like that? Which then we go to the data science fluency pathway, where we talk about what is machine learning, what's artificial intelligence, what's deep learning. There's a lot of hype around this space, and a lot of vendors and media make it sound really scary. So let's talk about what that is and how we can use it as an organization. Once we've got all definitions laid out for our organization, we move up to the XYZ value story workshops. These are workshops where we get a smaller group of employees together and we're going after that curiosity. We want them to dream again. Oftentimes we'll start this session with a Walt Disney quote that says, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." And that's what we're trying to get. Nothing's off the table in this session. We'll worry about possibilities later, but we want all the ideas here. We use those XYZ statements that I mentioned earlier to generate tons and tons of ideas. If you do these right, you'll have a data science backlog that will last you for years. But that's really not the purpose of these sessions. The purpose of these sessions is to get people thinking again. 2 years ago when I started, we had to beg people to do data science work. Literally, beg people. It was a miserable time. But now, they actually contact us. And the beautiful thing about this is they contact us, and it's in XYZ format already. So they've already structured their hypothesis, and so we can go, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go work on that. It's very fast and intuitive. After the XYZ workshops, we go into Analytics Bootcamp, where we take a number of employees, and we give them thought process training. How to think like a data scientist. What makes them different? How to think like an analyst. How can you use these tools? And we give them some basic tools to accelerate and grab some low-hanging fruit, because it's all over the place. And so we need those people to know how to use basic data science and machine learning to sort of figure out, what they can do. We figure that this covers about 80% of our organization's needs for analytic self-actualization. However, there is another group. There's this group up and to the right. This is 20% of your organization probably. That's about what we estimate our organization, that will thirst for more analytic self-actualization. And these are the dangerous people. The people down there, not so dangerous. The people up and to the right, really dangerous. Because these people will go out and build their own solutions. They will build a neural network in Excel, and they will train it, and they'll say, this is great. If you click through all these tabs, you'll see that my neural network converges and only takes 24 hours, and the answer's wrong. But if you give these people what they're looking for, it can be empowering. So we start out with cloud fluency. This is where AWS is a great partner. We give them AWS accounts. We let them go experiment. Go spin up a bunch of stuff. It's not that expensive to experiment in AWS. And we give them the tools that they can go and play and try stuff out. After that, we've got the data exploration training, which is, what are the common pitfalls when you're doing data analysis? How can you extract the most data or the most value from data? This is where we can really teach people, you probably want to stay away from things like this and lean towards other types of analysis. Now, citizen data science. This is one of those terms that's somewhat new and has a lot of different meanings. But at Invista, what we mean by this is someone who has deep domain expertise. So you've got chemical engineers, you've got process engineers, supply chain analysts, customer service representatives that have deep domain knowledge. And the scary part is they're a little bit dangerous with machine learning, right? But with this citizen data science training, we oftentimes will give them a little bit more Python training, give them some structure, a place to play. And we give them those abilities to have resources, right? And the nice thing is we connect them to the data science team because they do have that deep domain expertise, so they're amazing at that. But in the data science realm, they may have questions. So who can they go ask? The data science team, right? We're supposed to have that deep domain knowledge in data science, and then we can join those two. And so we believe that if you do this 20% correctly, you'll extend your data science team. Right? They're very expensive assets, right? If you think of human beings as assets, data scientists are expensive. And so most organizations don't like hiring hundreds of them. But you probably already have a ton of people that are capable of doing machine learning, artificial intelligence, and they just need some help. And so this will extend, we believe, your data science capability far better than hiring a fleet of data scientists. So the last learning pathway, this is the data science competency. Really, this pathway is for your data scientists. In an area where there's a lot of new developments and things happening, you need your data scientists to be kept up to speed. And when you hire a new data scientist, they need to know about your industry and your processes really quickly. And so this is an area where we try and replicate what Polanyi called the Republic of Science, where we put all this information to have so our data scientists can quickly get up to speed and share content, share ideas, and have that repository. So if you have all of this, it still doesn't matter if you have horrible architecture behind it because no one can get to the data. So this is a common image in data science: develop, train, deploy, manage. And there's a lot of vendors out there that will try and sell you this. But what I think a lot of those vendors mistake is there's a lot of different parts of data science. So you've got computer vision, you've got deep learning vision, you've got deep learning, you've got regression, you've got forecasting, object detection, anomaly detection, and regression and classification. So there's all of these different styles. So if you buy a style of data science software for each of those, you will have millions of dollars of machine learning debt, and no one will be able to integrate with all those tools, and it'll be problematic. So that's what we observed. We hypothesized that with a good base infrastructure, we would be able to insert vendors as needed as they became optimal. And that's where AWS plays in. Their Amazon SageMaker is amazing for this because, one, it's pretty well integrated and they come out with new stuff all the time. And two, Amazon's great. They allow us to buy algorithms and models from other people. They don't say, hey, you have to use ours, right? That's a win-win. So when people often look at this, they only see the data science workflow, but there's really two workflows here. There's the data science workflow and the data workflow. And if you don't get both of them right, you'll have problems. So what did it look like? Well, this is what our architecture used to look like: a variety of data sources from manufacturing to images to sensors, all coming into a data warehouse, into internal analytics. If you want to know how painful that was, when I first started, we can count how many people it took me to talk to before I actually got data. So there was a research engineer, a process engineer, a corporate data owner, a corporate business intelligence lead, and then you had to get the local side IT, and then there was the data architect, the data scientist, the data engineer. Heaven forbid risk and compliance had to get involved because then you had to talk to them and convince them that the cloud was safe, right? But that's how many people I had to talk to. If you weren't counting, that was 10. There's 10 people I have to talk to before I get data. And if that doesn't kill happiness or experimentation, it takes 2 months, which is crazy. As a data scientist, I don't want to sit around waiting 2 months for this. So what did we do? With the great help of Amazon and our data engineers and data architects, this is how it looks today. It's a little bit simplified, but essentially we ask for permission once for that variety of sources, and we dump it all into the data lake. And then there's this virtualization layer, which essentially allows us to reach back into the data lake or the data warehouse, or even those variety of data sources if we wanted to. And we can even connect to outside APIs and pull them in and make them look like they sit on the same plane. Now, some people say this isn't optimal. It's true, it's not optimal. We're experimenting. With engineers, we can say, hey, this is my question, my experiment. We'll go back and say, these are all the variables I think are important. Then we choose out and we build the model. And then once I have that built, I can go back and say, these are the variables that are truly important that I need you to optimize, and they'll put it into the data warehouse and pull it through. But I can still have my version, and I can still be working on it, and I can still progress, and we can still use it until they optimize it, right? I'm not stopped, and they're not frustrated with me because I'm telling them, hey, you've got a week to get this pipeline built because I got to get that data. And there's a lot of other cool things. So we believe in the data ops mentality of automation first, or how can you be lazy. One of the things that came out of this is from that virtualization layer, we can now give a vendor an API instead of doing data dumps. Say, here's the data. If you want it, you need to be able to connect this way. That's a preferred vendor. We don't want to put your software at all of our sites to have that management disaster, right? So there's a lot of fun things, and there's a lot of people that worked on this. And it is very brings great joy to me because now it takes 2 hours for me to get data. And it takes less time and 3 people instead of 10. And Amazon has been a great partner in helping us with this. And Doug will show you the great reference architecture so you can build your own.
So working with Invista and others, this is a great high-level concept. But you're probably sitting there going, what about me? All right, so how do I do it from the standpoint? So what we've done is take this and layer in all the services that you guys know and love. And we're a technology company. We have to have the most confusing PowerPoints available. It's part of life. But really what this is doing is this is helping you see where data is going to be able to flow. And we look at data flowing across multiple ways. So you can have data flowing from the left-hand side, from the factories that we were talking about. So how do I go from a reel that's rewinding nylon to make sure that it's available for my customers out there? How do I get that data off of that machine to make sure it's not breaking, exactly what we're talking about, and sweating that asset as much as possible? But then not just at one location, but at hundreds of locations as you go forward from there. So moving that data from that on-premise location, that left-hand side, into the cloud environment and bringing those capabilities such as SageMaker, such as S3, such as the capabilities that are going to come together to allow you to start moving data into actionable intelligence. Honestly, data is useless. I hate to say that as a data company, but it's true. You need to start driving towards intelligible action, which this is going to, or actionable intelligence, which this architecture will allow you to do. And then if we have partners, if we have a partner that built a product for us, maybe it's a smart product, a smart machine, or if you're making products, you can start from the right-hand side. And that data off of those devices could now be part of this environment so you could make better products because you know how they're being used. So if I know how products are being used, I could be that R&D person down at the bottom layer looking at the data to make that next generation of my product better. If I can make that next generation of the product better, I get better customers. We start to build that flywheel of data and the flywheel of the love of the data because your business is being run better and better as we go forward. This architecture is available now for you guys across multiple different industries. This one's for manufacturing. We have this across a lot of other industries to be able to piece together and look at different areas from a use case standpoint. So we talked about predictive maintenance and how predictive maintenance will use these services to tie together to improve your business as you go forward. So what have we looked at? We've looked at some great success, some great ideas, and some great pathways that customers are following. And Invista, I think, hopefully has brought you some good ideas to be able to follow from those standpoints. Lots of different challenges out there. Data ownership, data federation, data security is always going to be a challenge if you haven't thought about it from the start. Looking at the architecture, that architecture we feel will help you understand the data, understand the security, understand the nuances from those availabilities, bringing that together with the learnings of what is a learning pathway. And I love that idea of not everybody needs to be a data scientist, but they should understand what that data scientist is. It's incredible when you talk with their executives and they do start talking data scientists. They do start talking those capabilities, which I don't think every company is at yet. So how do you take that back to your areas for those learnings to really be able to drive those capabilities within your company as we go forward? But with that, I'd like to thank Liz and Caleb. I think this was an awesome time. Thank you guys very much for this. And thank you guys for being here as well. Thank you.